Welcome to Securities 101 for Gurpreet Singh's team. Today I'm going to teach you how to make money with securities. I promise you, if you learn the presentation that I'm going to teach you today, your closing ratios are going to go way, way up. This is what I use whether you have a $50 a month, $25 a month, or a $500,000 client that you're talking to. It's the same presentation, exactly the same. So how we start out is teaching the rule of 72. Now everyone out there knows the rule of 72. I'm just going to go briefly through it the way I teach it. Basically, I start out by saying to the client, have you ever heard of the rule of 72? If they say no, well, we're off to the races. If they say yes, I say, could you please explain that to me, what it is? And no matter what they say, I'm still going to do my presentation. So the rule of 72 is a mathematical equation that shows you how quickly, at a certain interest rate, $1 will turn into $2. Okay, so are you currently saving in the bank? Do you have any money in the bank? Typically, they're going to say yes. And I will say to them, about what interest rate do you think you're getting on your savings? And they'll say either I don't know, or 1%, 2%. And I'm going to tell them it's less than 1 typically. So let's look at how the rule of 72 will work in a bank account. You take the number 72, you divide your interest rate. For this example, we're going to say 1%. You divide your interest rate into the number 72. It will tell you how many years, it's going to take for your money to double, for $1 to turn into 2. So does that excite you? If you take your age right now and add 72 years onto that, does that get you all jazzed up? And they'll usually say, no. Well, there's $6 trillion sitting in savings accounts, and if most people realized they were getting 1 or less, they wouldn't be very excited about it. Now I say to them, do you know what the average interest rate has been over the last 40 years? And typically they won't know, or they'll say, I don't know, 5%, 10%. Well, it's been a 3% in the bank over the last 40 years. So let's use the rule of 72. 72 divided by the average interest rate, which would be 3% over 40 years, means your money would double every 24 years, when $1 would turn into 2. So please take your age that you are right now mentally, think about it, don't have to say it out loud, add 24 years onto that in your head, and does that excite you? That's when $1 will turn into 2. Typically, they'll say not so much. But let's look at this. There's something called inflation. Your food, your gas, your clothes, your stuff, it goes up an average of 3% per year. So if the bank is giving you 3 and the cost of your goods and services has gone up 3, have you made any money at all? No, I have not. And the worst part is, typically you'd have to pay taxes on top of any money that you've made. So now you've still made negative. So that's not really exciting, is it? How about if you were able to get a 6% rate of return? That's a little better. So take your current age, and then your doubling factor would be every 12 years. That sounds a little bit better, but what if I could show you in black and white that the average mutual fund over 40 years has averaged a 12% rate of return? That means your money would double every 6 years. That means it would compound or double and double and double. So let's just use a quick example. Let's say, sorry about that. Let's say that you were 21 years old and I gave you $2,000 in a tax return. Why? Because typically a tax return is $2,000, $4,000, $8,000, but let's just say $2,000. You took that $2,000 and instead of spending it, going on vacation, going to Disney World, or paying down debt, you took that money and you went ahead and you put it into a mutual fund, averaging a 12% rate of return. 72 divided by 12 is the number 6. That means that money would double every 6 years. So let's take a look at that. Your $2,000 in 6 years would turn into $4,000. Another 6 years, that would turn into $8,000. Another 6 years, it would turn into $16,000. Do you see how that's working? It's doubling and doubling, it's compounding. Another 6 years, it would turn into $32,000. Another 6 years, it would turn into $64,000. Another 6 years, it would turn into $128,000. Another 6 years, it would turn into $256,000. And then I take a big arrow on my paper and I say at age 69, and I write it in big numbers, you would have $512,000 with a one-time investment of $2,000 compounding at an average rate of return of 12%. Now that's exciting. But imagine if you went next year and you took your tax return of $2,000 and you put that away. Now at age 70, guess what you have? Another $512,000. Aha! Now at age 23, you put that away. At age 71, what do you have? Another five. This is how the average person can create wealth. You see, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And how you invest what you keep is how you have a quality retirement or not. So you can see how this would turn into a lot of money, correct? Correct. Okay, so let's go to the next thing that we want to look at, the rule of 72. The next is going to be, Mr. Client, do you know where, can I have that wet nap, please? Mr. Client, do you know where you would get an average 12% rate of return? Because usually they're going to say, can you show me where? And I'm going to say, have you ever heard of, thank you, have you ever heard of something called a mutual fund? Now typically they're going to say, yeah, I've heard of it before. And I'm going to say to them, well, can you explain to me how it works? And they're going to say, well, it's in my 401k, it's a collection of stocks. I don't really care what they say because I'm going to do this example, my example anyway. So if you notice a common thread here, I want them to have an opportunity to participate. Thank you so much. But I am going to make sure that they really understand what it is. So what is a mutual fund? And I describe it a little bit differently than most people. I would say, I'm going to make believe Gurpreet is my client right now. I would say, Gurpreet, or Mrs. Singh, Gurpreet, can you tell me, do you have any children, maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 years old? And she's going to say, yes, I do. And I'm going to say, can you give me the name of that child? And she's going to say, okay, Johnny. I'm going to draw a box on a piece of paper, and I'm going to write Johnny's name over here. I'm going to say, how old is Johnny? She's going to say 10. Johnny is a wonderful young man. He's fantastic. We love Johnny. Johnny's a great kid, but today he's making mommy nuts. He is just not stopping, making her crazy. So Gurpreet says, honey, I love you very much, but right now mommy has to get a few things done. Could you go in the backyard and play? Now the backyard is all fenced in and it's nice and safe. And she goes ahead and she gives Johnny a baseball and a baseball bat. I want you to see that. Johnny goes in the backyard, he takes the baseball, he throws it up in the air, he smacks it with the bat, it goes flying over the fence into the neighbor's window and takes out the entire window, breaks the entire thing, the whole thing just shatters. Well, you know, Gurpreet has a couple of choices here. Either she fixes that window because she's Johnny's mommy, or she moves because people in the neighborhood are not going to like her much. And usually that gets a little bit of a laugh. That's very risky, wouldn't you say? And they say yes. I want you to think back before the crash of '08. There was a company that everybody knew, everybody believed in. It was a strong, solid financial U.S. company. The name of it was General Motors. Who in God's name ever thought that General Motors would blow up? But it did. Most people don't realize that General Motors filed bankruptcy. When General Motors filed bankruptcy, if you had General Motors stock and the whole thing exploded, guess how much your stock was worth? 0. Can you imagine all those people who worked for General Motors, had their whole retirement in General Motors, and now they're going to retire. They've worked there 40 years, thank God for Primerica. They've worked there 40 years, and guess how much money is in their retirement plan? Now, the government came in and swooped them up and bailed them out and all the rest of that. That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about the initial stock. Very, very risky. It's called putting all of your eggs in one basket, which we all know, everybody's heard that expression, is not the way to go. I want you to go back to the Johnny illustration again. Now on my piece of paper, I draw a square, and this time I am going to draw a square with many panes of glass, or many windows in that window. Many panes of glass in that window. And I'm going to say, Johnny, please go outside and play. He takes the baseball and the baseball bat. He goes in the backyard, he throws the baseball, he smacks it again, but this time when it goes flying over the fence, it only takes out one of the squares or one of the sets of panes inside of that window. Now, isn't it true Guppreet, that you only have to replace that one window pane. You have to reglaze that window pane, not the entire thing. Is that correct? And she's going to go, yes. And you're going to say, now imagine that was General Motors. General Motors, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Walmart, American Airlines, Citigroup, Bank of America, Bristol Myers, Colgate-Palmolive, Primerica, blah, 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 blah. Make sure that you memorize 5 or 6 names of stocks so you're not groping for them, so you can just kind of rattle them off. If there were 200 or so panes of glass and only one of them exploded, did you lose all of your money? And they're going to say, well, no. I'm going to say, this is a mutual fund. It is diversified. It spreads your dollars among many, many different companies. Every single company that I just named would have to go to zero at the same minute, at the same time, on the same day for you to lose all of your money. And by the way, the first mutual fund started back in 1926. It was called Massachusetts, actually 1924, excuse me. It was Massachusetts Financial Services. It made it all through the Great Depression, and there has never been a mutual fund that ever went out of business, ever, because every single company would have to go to zero at the same minute, at the same day. And if that happens with the names I've just said, well, you got a lot more to worry about than your mutual fund, if that's the case. The whole thing is, the whole world is exploded at that point. Would you agree? And they're going to say yes. So why is it called a mutual fund? Guppreet puts in $100 a month. I put in $50 a month. My son puts in $25 a month. We mutually own shares of the same basket of stocks. The amount of money we put in determines how big of a share we own, but we all own the same companies, hence the name mutual fund. We mutually owned all of the companies. So that is how I describe a mutual fund. Now I'm going to go into the next example. I'm going to say, Guppreet, you know the market goes up, the market goes down, the market goes up, the market goes down. Would you rather make money, excuse me, thank you. Would you rather make money when the market is going up or when the market is going down? And I don't care what she says, because I'm going to say, well, how about both? And she's going to go, well, yeah. And I'm going to show you how you can make money with the market up and with the market down. So what have we covered so far? We have covered rule of 72 and how a mutual fund works. This example, everybody understands. Doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. The next thing I'm going to show you is something called dollar cost averaging. Guppreet, you go ahead and you put $100 a month into that fund, okay? Through your 401k or a Roth IRA, and we'll get into all those different options that you have later on. You put in $100 a month. The first month, your basket of companies or your mutual fund is trading at $10 per share. How many can you buy? Pause, help them. 10. Let them think for a minute and try to answer. The next month, you put in $100. The market is trading at $10 a share. How much did you buy? 10 shares. The next month, 9/11 hits. The world is in panic. They don't know what's going to happen. We have someone blowing up buildings on our soil. We don't know who the next one is going to be or where it's going to be. Market is uncertain. Uncertainty in the market is not good. That's when you see these gyrations. So now it's down to $5 a share. How many shares did you buy? Next month, still we don't know what's going on. Market's down. Somewhere in here, if you did not understand dollar cost averaging and you were not a Primerica client, you would be calling your broker ready to throw yourself out of a window. But because you're our client, you understand that this is not a bad thing, this is a good thing, because look what happens. Eventually, the market is going to come back to where it was. Well, you say, Lorraine, I was losing money all the time in here. Really? Let's talk about that. You invested $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, $600, but you purchased 10, 20, 40, 60, 80, 90 shares, trading at $10 a share. Now the value of your investment is $900. You just made a 50% return, 50% return, because when the market was down, you were buying on sale. Let me ask you something. I know up in the north you have different grocery stores than we have down in the south. I'm from Florida. I have Publix down here. I love a good quality steak, a good T-bone, a good porterhouse. They're $15.99 a pound average at Publix. If they have them on sale for $8.99, am I not going to buy them that day because they're on sale? No. This is what Lorraine does. I get one of those styrofoam coolers, and I have them wrap up a whole bunch of them, and I buy a whole bunch of them, and I freeze them for a rainy day. Because when the market is down, it's on sale. People are still going to buy Apple computers and phones and Microsoft, and they're going to turn their lights on, and they're going to brush their teeth, and they're going to wash their hair. These companies are solid. They're not going out of business tomorrow. And if they did, you're in a mutual fund, so you're very well diversified if one of them had a challenge, just like General Motors. So since the world is going to continue on, if things are on sale, you need to buy on sale. That's when the market is going down that you're making money, as long as you're continuing to buy. Of course, we all know is if you're putting $100 in a month and the market's going up, you're still making money. The only challenge is that $100 will buy you a little less in shares as the market is continuing up. You're still making money, but I'd much rather have a market like this. So when the market does go down, and it's supposed to. It's healthy when it does that. That's not a problem. Right now we have a lot of gyrations in the market. There's a lot of money being made right now. See, people who aren't advised and people that don't use a professional advisor are scared to death. But people who use a professional advisor understand that this is normal, this is what's supposed to happen. Don't panic, let it shake itself out. It's all good from there. Okay, so that is dollar cost averaging. Then the last thing that I do is I talk about the history of the market. So I have to erase again. Give me a second. My son's laughing at me. So we have covered the rule of 72, how a mutual fund works, dollar cost averaging, and the last thing I'm going to explain to you, Mr. or Mrs. Client, or Miss Singh, is the history of the market. They started tracking the stock market back in the early 1900s. And this is the history of the market, more or less. Okay? I'm not a professional drawer or a artist, but it'll do for now. Okay. So if this is the history of the market, there have been 3 times in history, 3, only 3, where the market started to decline and it took 3 full years for it to come back to even. Mr. Client, can you tell me the first time that was? Think way back. When was the first major problem pullback in the market? 1929, the Great Depression. Had you invested in 1929 and the market went down and you didn't throw yourself out of a window, which a lot of people did, and you stayed invested back to 1931, 32, you would have been even from there. How about the next time the market went down and stayed down for 3 years? It was 1970. Let's think about what was happening in 1970. There was the Vietnam War. There was the oil crisis, the oil embargo. We had, oh my gosh, so much going on. We had our men and women coming back from Vietnam and we were spitting on them and calling them baby killers. We had double-digit inflation, 14% inflation. It was a very hard time. It was exactly like we had a few years ago where people were panicking. They didn't know what to do, like back in 08 and 09. So the market went down, and had you stayed invested and didn't throw yourself out of a window, about 3 years later, you would have been fine and continuing on. And the last time we had a 3-year pullback like that was 2001, 9/11. Now, have we had minor pullbacks along the way? Absolutely. What happened in 2004? What happened in 2008? Do you realize the catastrophe that we had in 2008 where the market went in half? A year and a half later, had you stayed invested and not sold out, you would be right back to where you were. So when someone says to me, Mrs. Singh, Miss Singh. I lost all my money in the market. It was because they didn't have a professional advisor. When the market started to go down, they listened to CNBC, they listened to Fox News, they listened to everybody but someone who had their best interest in heart, and they bailed. And they bailed. And when they bailed, they guaranteed themselves a loss, and they locked themselves in a loss. Can you see why it's so important to work with a professional advisor who, if and when the market is going up and down, can always keep you level-headed and focused on your goals? So today, my question to you would be, let's get started. You ready to get started? Okay, let's go. And then I just close for the dollar amount, close for the paperwork, and go. If you do this, you've taken away the fear of the market going down. You've taken away the fear of the market gyrating. You've made them understand that if the market goes down, they don't sell out, they continue to buy more. You've made them understand that saving in a bank or something at 1 or 2 or 3% is just not going to cut it for them. You've made them understand what Primerica does, which is buy term, invest the difference so you can have a secure future. So I would like to thank you for your time today. I hope this helps. Gurpreet, if you need any further information, please feel free to call me. Love you guys. Make a lot of fat cash. Bye-bye.